guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the Jake Shields podcast. Chris Mancuso here with Jake. Jake, Bellator 258. You were in Patchy Mix's corner. Huge win for him. Huge win for Bellator, I would say.
Yeah.
That was the part of the weekend. We had the UFC Vegas 26 go down, but it failed in comparison to the Bellator card. That was a great card. How was it like being down there in Connecticut and seeing the promotion grow? Obviously, pretty close ties to the Strikeforce days.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think Bellator is moving in the right direction. You know, Scott Coker taking over a couple of years ago. I fought for Strikeforce for a while, and I thought, Strikeforce was the premier show, and I think Bellator's heading in that direction. They're catching up to the Strikeforce days and just getting better and better. As far as being there is a little weird because the COVID restrictions, we couldn't even really watch the fights other than my guy. So we got Patchy ready, and he obviously did phenomenal. He fought a tough guy, had a tough first round after that, went and dominated and put the guy in the head and arm triangle and finished him with the arm triangle. Got another win, sets himself up for potentially a title shot with Pettis. Or I know he has had some bad blood with this guy Gallagher, who's one of Conor McGregor's teammates. They had some words, so they don't really like each other. So that was a fight that was supposed to happen, but Gallagher pulled out with an injury. So I think Patchy set up for a good situation, either a big fight with Gallagher or a title shot with Pettis. And either way, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I was in the post-fight media scrum for Patchy there after he won, and he said Gallagher. Okay, and I don't understand this. He shows up to the fight that he pulled out of, and apparently he was there, like texting him, talking shit, and telling him that if he gets beat, he's gonna get cut. Was that riling Patchy up, or was it more like I've never seen someone show up to an event they pulled out for that? Like, not to my knowledge. I mean, I'm not there, but that just seems like, is that an odd thing to happen?
Yeah, it was odd. I think it was more annoying Patchy because they were talking crap in the hallway. It was no big deal. But then all of a sudden the guy's in the DM and he's just like DMing him like 100 messages just nonstop, telling him he's going to get cut. He's scared of him. It was just it was like a little girl harassing him. I mean, Patchy he responded a few times back, but then this guy if he wouldn't respond, it'd be like 15 DMs just trying to, I think he was trying to rally him up, maybe hoping Patchy would lose because he probably doesn't want to fight Patchy. I think Patchy's actually in his head and he's a little psyched out and he's trying to imitate and be a wannabe Conor McGregor. But hey, it might have worked. It got Patchy to say his name. Patchy probably would have tried to go straight to the title, but he did a good job of getting in his head and help build the fight. And now Patchy doesn't like him and wants to beat him up. But Patchy's I don't think he's a guy you want to get mad. He's a tough dude, you know. I think he's 25-1 if you count his amateur fights, almost all finishes. He's if people don't know him, they should be watching. This guy's I think he's the future of that division.
Yeah, 100%, man. He put on a clinic. I think it was the first round came out a little slow. They came to your guys' corner. You had told them, like, I need you to dominate from here. And it was like he just came out a completely different fighter, took it to him until he ended up finishing him. I know he had said he dealt with a little back issue, too, throughout the week. Made the rest of the week pretty tough, but certainly a great fight. And like you said, Gallagher, yeah, he comes from that McGregor pack of fighters, too. So that makes sense. But yeah, I've never seen a fighter really show up to a fight they dropped out of and cause a stir like that. I thought that was interesting. But speaking of interesting, you brought up Pettis. He beats Juan Archuleta. Were you surprised to see Sergio Pettis get the win there after all Archuleta's done before? Or is this something that, being in the sport, you knew was a real possibility? Because the last time I know he fought in the UFC for a bit, lost to Rob Font, guys like that. But were you surprised to see him take the belt off Archuleta?
I gave Archuleta a slight advantage, but I wasn't surprised. I think Pettis is a guy who has improved quite a bit. I mean, he looked extremely improved in the fight. He was patient, got great striking, great counter striking. I was impressed with the performance, and I think he's going to be a good champ, and that's why I can't wait for Patchy to get that title fence. He's a constantly improving fighter.
So speaking of Bellator, the last thing I want to get into at 258, Michael Venom Page. That guy is a human highlight reel of violence. He hits that kick, busts up the guy's nose terribly. This guy has dented someone's skull before. He's definitely making a ton of noise in Bellator as well. What did you make? Did you see that finish?
No, I love it because when we got started, we would always make fun of the karate guys were getting smashed, and he comes from a karate background, and he's going out there and making it work. We've seen Wonder Boy use karate as well, Yuto Machida. So it's great for guys. We laughed at karate for a while, but these guys are taking karate and adapting it and making it work in MMA. And I think it's that style he uses. He's so hard to hit. He's in, out, because the karate he comes from, I'm pretty sure if they hit 1 point, if they hit you, it's a point. So he doesn't want to get hit. he's not throwing a ton of power, but he's throwing so much speed. So his power is coming from his snap and his speed. And I would love to see him fight some of the UFC guys. But I know Bellator has a bunch of good 70-pounders as well.
Yeah, they have a great division for sure. And it's like, yeah, you would like to see him in the UFC, but I mean, the compensation, like you said, with Bellator and the way they're moving and making big moves now, I think they understand the importance of Michael Venom Page. I think Bellator would probably be more inclined to pay him the big bucks than, Dana would to throw him into the mix, because he's a 170, right? So you're looking at a division that has Usman, Covington, Edwards, Nate now when that fight goes down. There's a lot of guys there, right?
So him and Wonderboy would be interesting because they have that same style, that in out. That'd be an interesting fight to watch. Yeah,
that would actually be a great. I think that would be a great.
Could end up boring too. They might just circle each other, not be able to hit. But I'd be curious to watch and see how it played out.
Yeah, 100%. It's always fun to matchmake when you think about guys coming over. Now I want to talk about another guy here in one championship, Christian Lee. He is just 22 years old. He's the featherweight champion. He already has the most wins within the promotion with 15 and 14 stoppage victories. I mean, I know that you always hear of guys up and coming and stuff like that. But I mean, when you look at the world of MMA, you look at all these guys up there, pound for pound. Christian Lee at 22 years old, world champion, defeating legends over in the East. I mean, he's got to be a name you're hearing quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great striking. He mixes it up well with his age, his talent, his athleticism. He's a huge prospect. I would still probably personally call him more of a prospect just because he's beaten some good guys, but I don't think he has quite the same level of competition. Unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to tell because these names we don't know as well out of Asia, so it's hard to judge sometimes. But a lot of these names I didn't recognize or didn't have those stacked records of some of the guys fighting in the U.S. So he did look great to me, but I'm not quite ready to call him one of the best. Maybe top 10, I would agree with, but he's a huge prospect for sure.
Yeah, man, it's crazy to see just the sheer development. And I was surprised to see that someone could even be competing at such a young age professionally, 17 years old. Mm-hmm. To have that many fights under your belt, certainly, like you said, a top 10 prospect in the world to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah.
Is Christian Lee. He's a human highlight reel, that guy. Speaking of one championship, though, we have a pay-per-view coming Saturday morning, our time, Saturday night over there. It's Brandon Vera defending the heavyweight championship on one Dangal. That'll be pretty interesting. Vera spent some time in the UFC. Do you think he'll probably retain that belt over there? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Vera's a guy that I've been friends with him for years. Haven't seen him in a few years. I don't think he lives in the U.S. anymore, but he's a guy I've known for way back from when I started. He's been in the game, I think, about as long as me. I think he'll retain it, but he is a little older now. I think he's my age, 42. He might even be a little older. He might be 43. So the age, he has that factor. But I think he's still talented enough to get the win. But it's a tough fight.
Yeah, tough fight. He's 43 years old. The guy he's going against, though, I don't think is the greatest. I'm not too sure. His name's Aran Bouliar. He's actually Canadian.
Yeah.
He fights out of British Columbia. He's 10-1. He has a pretty good thing, but like you said, he did beat Juan Adams in the UFC, and Marcel Gaume he beat. So, and he's 1-0-1. We'll see. It could be. The heavyweights are interesting because
definitely a competitive fight.
Yeah. Heavyweights are interesting because they can always end with one punch, right? Like you saw what Derek Lewis did to Blades, and he beat Ngannou before as well, and you just know the power of those guys, which you saw working pretty closely with Ngannou.
Oh man, the power of Ngannou is just scary. Just I never sparred him. I'd help him with his grappling, but even training jiu-jitsu with him, you're like, man, he's so explosive. And then I'd watch him spar these heavyweights, and it's hard finding sparring partners for that guy. He's just so explosive. Even when he's trying to go light, he'll kick you in your shin or punch you, and you see guys just getting hurt in training.
Yeah, man, exactly. You got to have balls to go in there and even train with Francis Ngannou. Speaking of balls, guys, the Manscaped 4.0 is here, and it is going to change the men's grooming game for good. The 3.0 was amazing, but the 4.0 is just taking care of the little things that the customers and the fans wanted, which is great. So go on over to manscaped.com and use promo code Jake AJJ and get 20% off and free shipping. That's manscaped.com, promo code Jake AJJ for free shipping and 20% off of your order. Jake, we talked about it. UFC Vegas 26 did go down. Rodriguez versus Watterson. It was a great fight on short notice. Watterson comes up short now. In your career, did you ever have to take on any fights on short notice? And when you do, is it harder? I mean, I know everyone would always assume it's harder, but sometimes does it take the pressure? And I think sometimes you can overtrain and overanalyze things. Does it shut off some of that? Or how did you find fighting on short notice as opposed to getting a full camp and preparing for one opponent?
Yeah, I think that depends a lot on a fighter. For me, I actually love fighting on short notice, but I always stayed in shape, so it was easy. So I'd be in pretty good shape. So if I had up to 3 weeks notice, I'd be able to peak out. And I almost think I did better in my short notice fights. Sometimes I'd have too much notice, and like I said, I would train and be overtrained. By week like 6, my body would be beat up and worn out. So for me, I think 3-4 weeks was ideal. The difference is some of these fighters aren't staying in shape year round. So if you're way overweight or if you're not training that hard, 3 weeks isn't going to be enough. And I mean, even for me, if it was like, I think I fought once or twice, like in 10 days, and that's just not enough. You need at least like 3 days to really, put the sprints in, put the extra sparring. Do you know how much notice Watson had or no?
Off the top of my head, I'm not too sure. I want to say something like 9 days. I think it was like
9 days is not enough to really properly peak yourself out. It's basically you're just coming in there because even if you're staying in shape year round, it's not the same as competition shape. So like right now I'm in pretty good shape, but to go fight a tough 5-round fight and 9 days notice is not realistic. But I think if you're already in pretty good shape and 3 weeks training, you can jump yourself up to good enough shape. But 9 days is. But I mean, it can work. Look at Nate Diaz. He stepped up and fought Conor McGregor on 9 days and had that amazing performance where Conor was the one that gassed. So it's all, sometimes your body is better off without beating it up first.
Yeah, man, definitely. Speaking of a beat body, we got to talk about it. He was on the card as well. Cowboy Cerrone, he took the loss versus Morano. He's now lost 5 of his last 6 fights, and the 6th fight was a no contest. I'm a big Cowboy guy. I like his personality. Always game to fight. Done a bunch of those short notice fights too. I think one of the guys, I think the whole promotion could lean on to take a fight. Cowboy Cerrone, where do you think he goes from here? A bit aged. What did you see in that fight? I know you were able to catch that fight with the Bellator travel. Yep. It was tough to catch the card, but I know you caught the Cerrone fight. What did you make of that? And then where do you kind of see the Cowboy train going from here?
Cowboy's a great fighter. He always starts a little bit slow, but he seemed even a little slower this time. He kind of got picked apart. He always starts slow, so that's kind of his style to come in and then start picking guys apart later, but he just didn't seem to be able to like pick it up this time. Like he slowed down a little bit, and because he's been in so many wars, it's just a lot of damage. So he's getting hit. I don't think he can take the shots quite like he could. And as far as what he should do, that's ultimately only his decision. This is a tough sport, and it's hard to walk away. I know I'm a guy that fought like almost 20 years. It's like it's all we know, so it gets really hard to change what we're doing. But when you're looking at 5 losses or 5 out of 6 losses, and he's also had a lot of wars, so he's taken a lot of damage. He might want to think about it and be like, does he need to do this? I don't know his financial situation, but I know he's made a lot of money. He could probably do other things. He's pretty famous. He could do analyzing things. Imagine other things he could transition to. If I was his trainer, I would tell him, take 6 months off, think about it, and then make the decision. And I mean, ultimately, it's his decision, but I think he's a little past his prime and maybe taking a little too much damage.
Yeah, definitely, man. Exactly. You never want to tell a fighter what to do because I don't think, I know when it came to the end of some guys, it was like really the end. I don't think it's looked that bad for Cowboy.
He's fighting top guys, so it's not like like you're losing to bums. So it's kind of an unfair situation when you're like, oh, you're on a big. It's kind of like the Chris Weidman we talked about last week. He had all these losses, or
they're not bums.
Some of these guys have a few losses in a row, but they're fighting like elite dudes. So it's not like they're just getting smashed. But it's also he's been knocked out a few times. He's been hit a lot. He's been in a lot of wars. I think he's still fairly healthy. It's like maybe you want to retire while you still are healthy. Like I had a long career and I still feel healthy, and I think maybe it was time to leave while I am healthy instead of pushing it to where you get hurt.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's all about knowing when it's time to go and that. Like now, speaking of all the years you put on your body, what do you have that anything lingering, anything that you deal with on a daily basis, or and what went into kind of keeping your body for someone like Donald Cerrone going into it? How were you able to be able to compete as long as you did? Because some of these guys just, you see the effects of their bodies, even mentally, physically, everything. And for you to hold it together as long as you did, and guys like Cowboy and Vera, but what goes into that?
I mean, for me, I haven't had too many injuries. I think a lot of it is I stayed in shape year round. I eat good, vegetarian, eat healthy, try to get good sleep. I think that's important. I actually was having back problems for a while. On and off through my career, I had lower back problems. I mean, it put me out a few times and had a few fights. I was dealing with it. Towards the end of my career, it got really bad where I was having a hard time training, and that's kind of why I stopped fighting. And it was getting to the point where I almost stopped training jiu-jitsu. But then, in the last like 6 months, the pain's gone away. I started like doing light deadlifts, and my back's been healthy again. So it's this is what's been great. I moved to Vegas. I've actually been able to train hard with these young fighters again. With like a year ago, I wasn't able to do that. So this is the first. After a few years of not being healthy, I'm feeling fully healthy again. I mean, I still get banged up training. Sometimes my neck's sore and stuff, but overall, I feel like my body's healthy.
Yeah, especially when you're coaching young guys like Patchy, who I'm sure you got to get right in there and get
Yeah,
physical with.
it's
Like
nice to be able to go and
that'll
train
keep
hard
you
with these guys. They respect you a little more when you go out and do the moves to them. If you tell them, they're kind of like, mm-hmm. But if you go out there and choke them with something or armbar them, then they're gonna be like, oh, what'd you do? Or you take them down with something, and then they're gonna see it works, and then they're gonna respect it a lot more if you actually can do something to them versus tell them you can do it to them.
Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. That's incredible. So I want to talk about something that's kind of come up here. I had a few questions about it on Twitter, and people even saying like, "Yo, ask Jake what he thinks about this." So I'm going to. We have Ryan Benoit here, Benoit from the UFC. Roll the clip here, guys.
129 pounds, the official weight for Ryan Benoit.
Okay, so you see that he barely can get on the scale, wobbly. They bring him down. He's overweight. We see Neil Magny beats Jeff Neal. He comes out and says he cut 37 pounds in 1 week.
Oh wow,
That
that's
is
rough.
very, very insane. That's a terrible weight cut. Now, what I want to know is should the bigger promotions look at adopting the one championship style of weight cutting, which is their rules include hydration checks on the fighters to include to ensure they are not cutting a lot of water. Fighters also have to weigh in at the weight during the entire week of the fight. So if you're fighting at 170, you can't come in on the weigh day thrown in the sauna right out of there coming on somebody's shoulders. You got to actually be walking around at that weight for a week because you see this happen. You hear about someone doing 37 pounds and listen, I know you're a fighter too, but I would tell you the same thing. Like you're all fighters, but nobody's kidneys are training or something. Like one of these days, if you're doing 37-pound weight cuts, something unhealthy could happen to somebody.
No, it's the weight cutting is a brutal part of the sport. I felt like maybe the weight cutting has done more damage in the fight. So there's been times I'm sitting in the sauna like thinking, oh, I could die from this. I remember overall I wasn't a huge 70 pounder, but I fought a few fights at 85s and then had to drop back down and fight Campman. And I was just, the weight wasn't coming off because I put on more weight than I realized and just wasn't coming off me. Just sitting in the sauna, like my muscles cramping up, make the weight, went out and fought the next day. Like within a minute, I was gassed. I managed out of just pure toughness and mental fortitude because knowing if I win that fight, I'd get a title shot. I just fought and pushed through it. But the damage in my body that fight, I could feel it. And that was one fight. If you did that over and over, who knows what it would have done. And I agree when you do something about the weight cutting, but it's tough because ONE FC, I think it's good what they're doing, so we can see how it works. But so far, what they were doing here, people are finding tricks to beat it. There's like loopholes around the hydration, which is probably why they're adding the daily checks, like you said. And again, this might work, but are you going to get guys that cut weight every single day for a week and deplete themselves even worse? There's always new guys trying to game the systems. Thing is, it might backfire and hurt them where guys stop cutting weight, and that's hopefully what they're looking for. So overall, I think it's good they're trying it. So we can let's let them do it for a year or so and see how it works. I think
Yeah.
unfortunately, guys, like I said, they figured out how to trick the hydration system. And ONE FC must. I mean, I've heard through people. I'm not going to like say any names or be a snitch, but I've heard there's tricks to beat the hydration system. So and ONE FC must have heard the same things I'm hearing. So now they're doing the daily checks, and hopefully that works and solves the problem. And it will work, and the UFC and stuff can adapt it. But have a feeling there might be guys that try cutting 5 days in a row and cheat the system 5 days in a row and like do more damage to their body and go and perform even worse. So it's so I say let them do it for a year and see how it turns out, and then other shows can maybe follow.
Yeah, definitely. Right. It's just I'm noticing, and I want to ask you this before we move on from the topic. I find I've been watching the sport now since, I would say 15, 16 years myself. I find these weigh-ins, wobbly instances, people getting carried to the scales is something we're seeing more of a lot now as opposed to what I remember 10, 11, 12 years ago. And my question to you is, do you think that goes in with the mentality of younger people? I just know that and I'm not even saying from you, I know other people in the sport that say sometimes it's hard to get these guys to want to wake up and come to the gym in the morning and put in that time. And they're finding that people have these panic weeks of cutting now, and that's a problem. Do you find that is a little different from your day, or is it just like you guys were a little better at hiding it? Because I feel like we're seeing one of those wobbly scale instances all the time.
I think a little bit of both. I've definitely seen that throughout the years of my career. I've seen guys make these massive weight cuts and be hurting, and guys breaking down, crying in the sauna. And as a coach, you're trying to say, do you put them back in the sauna? Do you pull them out and miss weight? So it's something that I've seen for years. And I think some of the guys aren't doing the road work too, like doing the running earlier. That's where you get the weight down. And I think a lot of fighters are pulled away from running. All the old boxers were run, run, run. So a lot of the MMA guys were run, run, run too. Some of the new guys are like, oh, there's other ways to do conditioning, which is true, but the running is great for bringing your weight down. And I think that's what a lot of these guys don't realize. They're not doing the road work, and that's where the weight comes down.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting way to look at it. I just didn't understand it because I was just wondering where the disconnect is. And I know we've seen them before, but like I said, I just feel like it's been like the last couple months here. We've seen definitely a lot more of it. And I just didn't know if maybe it was like a generational thing or if it was just the way it just happens to be. Like,
I would like to see maybe a few more weight classes too, because there's big weight gaps in boxing. That every 7 pounds. In MMA, it goes every like 15, 20 pounds. So maybe there's a little too many weights in boxing, but maybe we could add like 2 or 3 more. So when you're talking about going from 155 to 170, that's a huge gap. So sometimes these guys are stuck right in the middle, and they're not sure what to do.
165 would be a good division, right?
Yeah, they're a little too small for 70s. But then the weight cut's a little too hard for 55s, or, from 135 to 125, that's a huge weight jump. So the guys maybe decide that, I'm going to try cutting down. It's just too much weight for them. And there's more money in the sport now too. So maybe guys are trying to figure, if I can get advantage by cutting more weight. But like I said before, sometimes you perform worse from cutting weight. Sometimes you see these guys go out there and they gas out, but they're in shape, but they're gassing because they cut too much weight.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I want to talk about here. We had another great performance out of PFL. Kayla Harrison, she's making a huge name for herself. She absolutely dominated. I think she maybe has like a fight or 2 left on her contract. But I was wondering, do you think she could actually, Kayla Harrison, be one of the next people that the UFC takes a look at? I know last week we talked about where's there left to go for Nunes or Shevchenko other than doing that a 3rd time. If you're in the UFC, do you maybe try to poach someone like Harrison and put her up against a Shevchenko or Nunes? I mean, she is powerful, she's strong, she's smart, and she uses all her tools very well. I was very impressed with her. Not sure if you caught that.
Yeah, I know. I saw that fight. She's extremely talented. I've been impressed with her. I've known about her for a while. I've been watching her since she first started fighting. I've watched her in the judo. Her judo, she's Olympic champion, I'm pretty sure, if not twice. So she's, elite level athlete. For an American to win the Olympics in judo is pretty rare, and she did it. So she's extremely talented. As far as the UFC, she's fighting at 155. The UFC doesn't have that weight class, so I'm not sure how much she weighs. I don't know if she could cut down to 45s or not. I don't know if the UFC has any interest in adding 55s. It's just not that deep of a division. I think that's what PFL was smart to grab that division and make it because the UFC doesn't have it. So they kind of created a division around Kayla. And fighting, I would like to see her fight Nunes, of course. That would be Nunes is just so scary. I think she's too big for the Russian girl, which she's extremely talented as well. But I think the size difference is too big between those two. And Nunes, it would be an interesting fight, especially if Kayla can make 45s. I think that would be great for the UFC to do that if they have any interest in it.
Yeah, definitely. I did actually just have producer Jack come in. I guess she actually has fought at 45, so she's made it before.
Okay. Yep, that's good to know. Then in that
Beautiful
case,
to know, yeah.
that,
And she's
that
a
answers that question.
two-time Olympian as well. So she's like you said. I mean, yeah, if she can get down to 45, you have to be interested.
But she's also being paid really well and treated really well in PFL. So it would be, is UFC willing to pay the money that, like some of the casual fans don't know? You know, they're like, they don't realize some of these other shows are paying better. That's why guys like Anthony Pettis are leaving, Wadoom are leaving. The pay is really good in PFL. So some of these, she might not have any interest to go over, but she also might have interest to be considered the best. And her and Nunes is the super fight to make.
Oh hell yeah, man! That's why, like we were talking about last week, just to see some promotional crossover shit be able to happen. Sometime would be awesome where you can make that fight happen. Everybody agrees, it brings more money into the pot. I'd like where you don't have to necessarily leave the promotion. Maybe one day, doubtful with Dana. But speaking of Dana, UFC 262 is going down on Saturday. We recorded, and then of course the second, because every time you come off a recording in any podcast, things change. 262 loses Nate Diaz. From that, him and Edwards are going back a month to UFC 263. It sounds like Nate caught a cut.
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately wasn't out there at the camp, but that's what I heard. I mean, that's I guess it's public knowledge. I'm not sure, but yeah, I guess he caught a little.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
doesn't sound like it was too big of a deal, but enough. You know, unfortunately, he has that scar tissue. So Leon's a guy that throws elbows. He didn't want to go in there with a fresh cut. Luckily, the UFC did a great job of rebooking it for only a month back. I was happy about that. When I heard he was out, I was like, oh man, so bummed. And I was planning on flying out to Houston, but after that, hadn't bought my ticket yet. So I'm like, oh sweet, I guess I'll just go. I think it's in Arizona instead. Makes it easier for me. So that's good. But it was a super stack card. I think it's still a good card. Luckily, they'd stack the card up so that when they lose a fight, it's not completely devastating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have the Oliveira versus Michael Chandler 155 championship fight here. Though I imagine the winner of that strap will probably take on the winner of Poirier and McGregor. How do you see Oliveira and Michael Chandler matching up here? And who do you like to come out of that?
Man, that is a really tough one to call. Chandler clearly has more power with the crazy power he throws. Clearly a better wrestler. Oliveira is the better jiu-jitsu guy. But Chandler, as far as I know, has never been submitted, so he's not an easy guy to submit. He's not an easy guy to take down. He gets a little reckless with his striking and can get caught, but I don't know if Oliveira has the power to put him down. Oliveira, he definitely has the ability to tap him. He's a phenomenal submission guy. Chandler has to be careful if he's shooting with the guillotines or if he gets on his back. It's a close fight. Forced to pick. I'm going to go with Chandler. I've been watching him. I've been watching him longer than Oliveira. I don't know if he's been fighting longer, but I've personally been watching his fights longer. I think he's extremely talented. I was watching him tear up Bellator, and I'm excited he got to the UFC and got a title shot so fast. I think he's a guy that's been underrated for a while and deserves the shot.
Yeah, definitely.
But not strong feeling in that fight. Oliveira is really underrated as well. As a guy who's kind of flown under the radar, including mine. He's a guy I hadn't really watched that much, and then I was looking at his record, being like, "Wow, this guy's beat some good guys and finished a lot of good guys." So somehow he kind of flew under my radar. But he's talented.
Yeah, man, definitely is, and I like Chandler's attitude. He came in went right through Dan Hooker. He immediately signed a fight to fight Oliveira off the hop without the title implication. Oliveira actually waited until Khabib gave up the belt and decided to stay retired to make that fight happen. He felt like he should have been in line for the strap, and Dana obviously offered it to Poirier first. He's going to take the McGregor fight every time, but I'm with you on that, man. I got Chandler in that one as well. There's another interesting fight. Tony Ferguson, again, a guy coming off some losses, but again, has fought killers, right? You're not going to take away everything Tony Ferguson has accomplished due to some losses versus some great guys. He's taking on Dariush. Do you think he's able to hang in with this one a little easier? I know his last few fights were tough.
Dariush is tough. He's really good jiu-jitsu guy. So stylistically, It's a tough matchup for Ferguson because this guy has, I would say, at least on paper, better jiu-jitsu than Ferguson. But Ferguson has such an unorthodox, crazy, all over the place style, both kickboxing, and he mixes his striking with jiu-jitsu really well. So it's an interesting match. I'm not sure where Ferguson's been training. I think his last fight, he kind of split with his camp, and from what I hear, didn't have the best training camp and looked a little bit flat. I would love to see him bounce back. I've been a big Ferguson fan for a while, so I hope he comes in and looks great again. But this fight's another toss-up.
Yeah, and I saw Dana White even said if Ferguson wins this, he'll put him back in the mix with all the guys he fought. So I think he understands that he had some big losses against some good guys, but Dariush is no joke. Speaking of jokes, we got a joke up here. Gotcha hat. We had Floyd Mayweather finally is the guy. We had said someone's going to get sick of Jake Paul fighting. He shows up to the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather media day at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. You got Floyd Mayweather there. He starts a confrontation with him. Well, first off, when they were on stage, Jake Paul took his untied his shoes, but we're going to actually roll the video here and show you exactly what Jake Paul did to Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah. Let me call out Heyman. Let's make it happen. I'm on one night. Got your hat.
You got a list.
See, exactly. Like, what do you think is going to happen? And you're a fighter. What did he think was going to happen when he snagged the hat of the greatest boxer of all time? And did you see the size of Floyd's security team? Like they just manhandled Jake Paul's security team was afraid to go in there. That was pretty funny to see that kid get his.
Yeah, no, I know if I took Floyd Mayweather's hat, I would expect it to get hit. It's like if someone took my hat or Nate's hat, it's just kind of how it is. Maybe Jake Paul grew up a little different with the YouTube videos, or, maybe he wanted to get hit and build the hype. It worked. It has us talking about him. He stole some of his brother's thunder. It was supposed to be the Logan Paul show, and he went and made it the Jake Paul show. I didn't even know. I looked online. No one was talking about Logan versus Floyd. It was all Jake versus Floyd. So he kind of stole his brother's shine, a little messed up. But he also got people talking. It was an elementary school move, take someone's hat. But, it got him out there. He's great at generating interest, and it's cheesy and don't love it. But he has people talking. He's a huge star from YouTube, and he's got eyeballs tuning in. And like we said before, in his credit, he really does take boxing serious. He's not just doing the antics. He is in there training every day, running and sparring and hitting pads. So
yeah. It was funny, but dude, you're not gonna do that to Floyd Mayweather. And just people were saying, "Oh, was that fake? Was that fake?" I knew it wasn't fake when you could hear him legitimately threatening to kill him.
He was pissed.
And he was telling his security when they had him, he was yelling, "Fuck him up, fuck him up!" He wanted them to beat his ass.
He was pissed, yeah.
And he's barred from the event now too. So at least it can finally be about his brother, because like you said, that stole his shine. That was kind of a bullshit move. Unless his brother was in on it, that's a really shitty play.
Yeah, I guess it helps Bill's brothers fight too, but it kind of steal his shine. So that seems a little messed up to me. And I find it hilarious with the fans. Every time there's a fight with fighters, they always think it's staged, but they don't realize we're fighters. For us to fight is not a big deal, especially when the adrenaline's going. It's like we're at a press conference, someone's in your face. It's not like we're obviously not going to randomly get in a fight walking down the streets, but when it's another professional fighter talking crap, we're ready to fight. So we obviously don't just beat up random people, but if someone else that does our sport and they disrespect you, it's we get in a fight. It's pretty common, you see fights pretty often in the gym. Someone disrespects them, they just start fighting. So I think maybe these fans, they live in a different world where no one fights. To us, it's like, oh, someone does disrespectful, we're gonna start fighting each other.
Yeah, that's exactly the answer I would expect from someone who threw a coffee at Dylan Dennis in the middle of a press conference.
Yeah, people thought a lot of those little mini brawls we almost got in between Connor's crew. They thought those were staged. It's no, we don't like those guys, and that's why I see that guy talking crap to my boy Patchy, and it reminds me of these guys. The Gallagher guy reminds me of Connor. These guys are just little shit starters. That's why I had to stay with Patchy before the fight, because I was scared Patchy was going to attack this kid before the match. And I'm usually with a temper, but I'm like, oh, I can't get my fighter pulled. So I was trying to follow him around to make sure he wouldn't run into Gallagher and start mouthing off. So I'd have to pull Patchy back. Let him get paid for the fight. Don't fight him in the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Get paid for it and then settle it there. That's the smart way to do it. And do you find it hard? Has it been a hard transition, or does that just come with age and that for you to be like you said, you're usually the guy with the bad temper. You're not even that far removed from slapping AJ in the face at Submission Underground when he tried to come over like an idiot. That was just a disaster for him, by the way. I felt him. Yeah, exactly. Is it hard, or does that just come with the mindset of a coach being a little different, where you want to look out for the best?
I don't have the best temper, so it's kind of funny for me to be trying to tell Patchy, oh, don't do that, when I've done that. So I feel a little bit hypocritical, but I'm looking at it all right, he's got a fight coming up. He's about to get paid. If we go and fight this guy right before the fight, it's not the guy he's fighting. It'd be different if this guy was fighting because it builds some hype, but it's not even the guy he's fighting. So he's just trying to get his mind somewhere else. And to go to fight someone like that, you might break your hand. Bellator might get pissed and pull your fight. So I'm just like, nah, you just stay away from this kid. Don't respond to his 100 DMs. He's like a little crazy ex-girlfriend. You can just beat him up.
That's creepy.
If he'll even fight him, I'm skeptical if he really even wants to fight Patchy. I think he was just trying to get in his head before the fight, hoping Patchy would lose.
Yeah, you've seen that stuff before, man, where these guys like think that they act like they're trolling them. And then it's like you start thinking, like, why would you even be doing that? Why do you want him to lose? Wouldn't you want him to win so you can keep this fight that you pulled out of? But like you said, maybe he doesn't want to. But I want to take us around the rest of the world of MMA. It just came out today. Dana White said it's going to be Francis Ngannou taking on Derek Lewis first, getting a rematch there, because Derek Lewis, when they fought, I think it was back in 2019 or 18, something like that, actually ended up beating Francis Ngannou, right? So they're going to start there with Lewis. He's not asking for a ton of money. And then I guess the plan is to have Stipe Miocic fight John Jones at heavyweight first for the #1 contender at that fight. Do you like that, or did you want to see Francis go right into John Jones? And as someone that has worked with Francis, and listen, everyone knows that Francis's strength is his striking. I think I think anyone would say he probably still has a bit of a way to go when it comes to his jiu-jitsu and ground game. I mean, I haven't even talked to you about this. This is just from everything that I read, and maybe you can elaborate further on it. But it's like, do you think it's actually kind of a good thing he can go in there, fight a guy like Lewis stylistically while continuing to work on those things in camp? Because when you come in, if John Jones gets through Miocic, John Jones is like a heavyweight none of these guys have ever really fought before. Like, I can imagine John Jones at 265 in shape and the freak of nature that he is too, and his agility, like that is going to be something that I don't think any of those guys have seen.
Yeah. First, this is the first I've heard this news. So from a fan's perspective, I'm disappointed. I really wanted to see Ngannou versus Jones. I think that was the fight to make. Jones is a guy, he does a lot of stupid things, but he gets underrated. The guy is just on he's really never lost. His only loss is that disqualification when he KO'd Matt Hamill. I think he's love him or hate him, he's one of the greatest of all time. The greatest 205 of all time. And that was a fight I was super excited about and a little bummed. I think, Francis is a tough fight for him, watching him train. I think, it's like I said, if a fan is the fight I wanted to see. Trainer, like I said, I'm not Francis's trainer, but if I was a trainer, I might be happy about this fight because it gives him a chance to redeem himself. You don't have to worry about the ground. I think Francis is the more dangerous striker, but you do have to worry about Lewis. He has that one punch.
Oh yeah,
it's not a light fight either. He could get slept, so you got to take it very seriously. But I think Francis' striking's improved. I think the first fight was so bad. They're both going to have pressure to go and do something. They know it. The guys know they can't go out there and circle. It was a hyped up fight that didn't live up to it. So
no, this has to end. This will end electric.
Yeah, and Francis is becoming a huge star, and another knockout could catapult him to that mainstream celebrity name, the huge paydays.
Yeah,
and I actually like Jones versus Stipe fight. I like that fight, even though I wanted to see the Francis one. That's an interesting fight. So it builds that, especially if Jones wins. If Jones goes and loses that, it kind of kills the. It builds the trilogy fight, but the hype's not quite the same because Francis dominated that one so bad last time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. And like you said, you're just finding out about that. That just came across the wire here. Jack threw that in. Shout out to him. Thanks a lot for that. Yeah, now I want to talk about too. Yeah. I guess it just dropped. That's what Dana's thinking is, him and Jones have such a weird relationship. I wouldn't be surprised if like in 2 days it's John Jones versus Ngannou, but there's always negotiating and stuff like that going into it. Clarissa Shields, it's hilarious. We were talking about her on one of our live streams, and right in the comment section, all the people, isn't that Jake Shields' sister? Isn't that Jake Shields' wife?
My cousin Clarissa.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you guys Google Clarissa Shields. It's not his sister. You guys have a different skin complexion and you guys look nothing alike. But I mean, it was funny that they said that. They thought it was your wife. Obviously, none of those two things. But what she is a great boxer who is actually making the transition into MMA. She's coming over into the world of MMA. You got to respect that.
Oh, yeah, great. Like I said, I've watched her a while, just the same last name. I'm like, oh, Shields, that's cool,
Yeah,
obviously probably not related, but who knows? Maybe somewhere way back there somehow. So it's cool watching her fight. And there's not very many boxers that have made the transition and like taking it serious. I know she's out there training jiu-jitsu. I think she's actually been training with John Jones and stuff. And she's with PFL, I believe. She's also a big girl, but super athletic. And if she wins a couple fights, I could potentially build her and Kayla I think that's a fight that should be kind of far off though, because the style matchup, Kayla's grappling being so dominant, it would be a tough fight. But
it would take her a bit of time to get to that level,
if she
probably.
can go out there and just dominate a few people, then it builds the hype and builds that to a huge payday.
Yeah,
But
and lastly,
I think she's gonna like pick apart a lot of girls that way. I think the level, world championship level. If she can get a basic takedown, basic get up, sprawl, I think she can pick some of these girls apart and can do well. I think she's fighting at 55s as well. She's big.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's a big, powerful girl, and I think she's going to do well in MMA. Like you said, she's putting in the work. It's not James Toney coming over to fight Randy Couture. That was a friggin' spectacle. Yeah, you knew he was going to get dumped on his back and killed in that fight, and that's exactly what happened. Oh, we lost your audio. Oh, there we go.
I'm back. Yeah, no, I think she's already making plenty of money boxing, so it means she's doing it because she wants to do it. So you're going to do a lot better when you're doing something because you actually enjoy it and want to do the sport versus you're doing it because you're trying to get the payday. So I'm excited to see her transition. It's another great addition to PFL. It's nice seeing Bellator and PFL and ONE FC being like real contenders in the sport now.
Yeah, man, it's great to see. Lastly, I saw another comment from Dana White come across here. He doesn't see Nick Diaz coming back now, but the quote was a little strange. He said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, I saw it just as we came on here. Essentially, he's seen Nick preparing for fights before, and he doesn't think he's preparing for it. Have you heard anything? Because the first question, as soon as that comes out to me on Twitter and everything, is what does Jake know? Have you heard anything to the contrary? Or are you still under the impression that Nick's looking to fight? And you said last week Dana's always trying to not pay them as much, doesn't treat them like stars. So I got to ask again, could this just be some of that Dana White, I'm worth $500 million, so I have to be an asshole negotiation thing?
Yeah, 100%. Nick wants to fight. Nick's training. Nick's ready to fight. Again, Nick's a big star. I mean, Nick's name comes up. Everyone starts texting me, is Nick fighting? Like the stardom that Nick and they bring is they're some of the biggest stars in the sport, but Dana tries acting like they're not. And Nick wants to get paid. It's that simple, and he deserves it. So there's no reason.
Hell yeah.
He's not asking ridiculous money, you know. I think being ridiculous. I mean, maybe John Jones was acting a little ridiculous for the Nagano fight.
30 million, yeah.
He's a huge star. He's put in the work, and Nick. I know Nick's asking a lot less than that. He just wants to be compensated fairly, and it's up to Dana to hopefully he'll do that because the fans will buy the pay-per-view. I mean, especially if you put something like a Nick Diaz Masvidal fight, that's going to do massive numbers. So there's no reason why he wouldn't be getting paid for that. It makes no sense for Dana not to want to set a fight like that up.
Yeah, it makes no sense, especially when you got the BMF belt. You can throw that in there. You get the fan base, exactly. Masvidal fans, diehards. Nate fans, obviously, all your guys fans, diehards. That's just how it is. I mean, it makes no sense. I hope it's just a negotiation tactic from Dana trying to keep, whatever, because I want to see him fight. I want to see Nick fight. We all want to see Nick get back in there. Everyone would buy the pay-per-view. Everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the fans are tuning for Nick Diaz. So for Dana to act like he's not a huge draw like that is just it's just ridiculous. But they've had a rough relationship pretty much forever, both Nick and him and Nate. I think Dana wants them to kind of kiss their ass, and it's just not their personality to do that. I know. No. Remember Dana pulled one of his. I think he almost pulled the GSP fight because he missed a press conference, and they've had issues for a while. And in Dana's defense, Nick can be a little bit difficult too, like missing interviews, missing press conferences. Yeah. But the enigma of that is why people love him, and he's not going to miss a fight. He might not do his interviews, but he's going to show up to a fight. And sometimes him missing interviews actually draws more interest because he is so unorthodox. And even me being a good friend, it was hard predicting what he's going to do sometimes.
Yeah, man. Exactly. Well, Jake, that's it for today's episode, man. Good stuff again today, guys. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, tarpsoftsports.com. Jake, thanks a lot, man. And we'll do it again next week.
Great, man. Thanks a lot.